Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narachaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोप कुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः. So we are at the second canto, fourth chapter, where Parikshit Maharaj asks, two questions. He says that how does the Lord create this universe through his energies? And the second question that he asks is that how does the Lord maintain and destroy this universe? Like, how does the Lord enact the primary creation through his Maya Shakti? How does he carry out the secondary creation through the demigods and Prajapati? So, Srila Shukdev Goswami, before answering the questions of Parishit Maharaj, he's praying to the Lord. So, these are all the prayers that we are continuing. In what do you say, in our reading section. So I'll just share the screen with you all. Okay, 1 minute, okay. Am I not able to share the screen? Just give me 1 minute. There's some problem. Yeah, okay, fine. You're able to see the screen? Yeah. Fine. So we had halted over here. Rupa Mataji, can you just read from here? He's still praying actually in this 18th shloka. We had halted a reading at the 18th shloka over here. Rupa Mataji, please read this section.
Sure, Mataji. I couldn't find it in. Let me read from your screen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mataji, give me a moment. Yeah. The above mentioned historical names are different nations of the world. Even those who are constantly engaged in sinful acts are all corrigible to the standard of perfect human being if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord. Jesus Christ and Muhammad, two powerful devotees of the Lord, have done tremendous service on behalf of the Lord on the surface of the globe. And from the version of Srila Sukadeva Goswami, it appears that instead of running a godless civilization in the present context of the world situation, if the leadership of the world affairs is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, for which a worldwide organization under the name and style of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already been started, then by the grace of the Almighty Lord, there can be a thorough change of heart in human beings all over the world, because the devotees of the Lord are able authorities to effect such a change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. The politicians of the world may remain in their respective positions, because the pure devotees of the Lord are not interested in political leadership or diplomatic implications. The devotees are interested only in seeing that people in general are not misguided by political propaganda, and that the valuable life of human being is not spoiled in following a type of civilization which is ultimately doomed. If the politicians, therefore, would be guided by the good council of the devotees, then certainly there would be a great change in the world situation by the purifying propaganda of the devotees, as shown by Lord Chaitanya. As Sukadeva Goswami began his prayer by disguising the word Yat Kirtanam, so also Lord Chaitanya recommended that simply by glorifying the Lord's holy name, a tremendous change of heart can take place, by which the complete misunderstanding between the human nations created by politicians can at once be extinguished. And after the extinction of the fire of misunderstanding, other profits will follow. The destination is to go back to home, back to Godhead, as we have several times discussed in these pages. According to the cult of devotion, generally known as Vaishnava cult, there is no war against anyone's advancing in the matter of God realization. A Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava is powerful enough to turn into a Vaishnava, even the Kirata, etc., as mentioned above. In the Bhagavad-gītā 9.32, it is said by the Lord that there is no bar to becoming a devotee of the Lord, even for those who are low-born or women, Sudras or Vaishnavas or Vaishyas. And by becoming a devotee, everyone is eligible to return home back to Godhead. The only qualification is that one takes shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord who has thorough knowledge in the transcendental science of Krishna, Bhagavad-gītā and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Anyone from any part of the world who becomes well conversant in the science of Krishna becomes a pure devotee and a spiritual master for the general mass of people, and may reclaim them by purification of heart. Though a person be even the most sinful man, he can at once be purified by the systematic contact with a pure Vaishnava. A Vaishnava, therefore, can accept a bona fide disciple from any part of the world without any consideration of caste and creed, and promote him by regulative principles to the status of a pure Vaishnava, who is transcendental to Brahmanical culture. The system of caste or Varnashrama Dharma is no longer regular even amongst the so-called followers of the system, nor it is now possible to re-establish the institutional function in the present context of social, political, and economic revolution. Without any reference to the particular custom of a country, one can be accepted to the Vaishnava cults spiritually, and there is no hindrance in the transcendental process. So, by the order of Lord Chaitanya Mahāprabhu, the cult of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or the Bhagavad-gītā can be preached all over the world, reclaiming all persons willing to accept the transcendental cult. Such cultural propaganda by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive without any particular bias for the custom of the country. The Vaishnava never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of birthright, just as he never thinks of the deity of the Lord in a temple as an idol. And to remove all doubts in this connection, Srila Sukadeva Goswami has invoked the blessings of the Lord, who is all-powerful, Prabhavaishnave Namaha. As the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotees in the devotional activities of the Archana, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple, similarly the body of pure Vaishnava changes transcendentally at once when he gives himself up to the service of the Lord and is trained by a qualified Vaishnava. The injunction of Vaishnava regulation in this connection runs as follows. Arche Vishnu Sheela Dhir Gurushu Nara Matir Vaishnave Jati Buddhihi Shri Vaishnor Nami Shabda Samanmaya Buddhihi, etc. One should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol, nor one should consider the authorized spiritual master an ordinary man, nor one should consider a pure Vaishnava to become a particular caste, etc. Padma Purana. The conclusion is that Lord, being all-powerful, can under any and every circumstance accept anyone from any part of the world, either personally or through his bona fide manifestation as a spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya accepted many devotees from communities other than the Vaishnava Varnashramites, and he himself declared to teach us that he does not belong to any caste or social order of life, but that he is the eternal servant of the Lord, who maintains the damsels of the Vrindavana, Lord Krishna. This is the way of self-realization. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, so this particular shloka, no, it speaks about that how people of any sinful race or even addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of his devotees. Because the power of the Supreme Lord is so powerful that it can immediately, where it is saying that, thing over here, Prabhu Vishnave, right? Yeah, who's all powerful. He can immediately, vanquish all the sins that are there. So, it's all about how to feel the presence of the Supreme Lord in our lives. And we can try it out, how we can feel the Lord's presence. Many people say, I don't feel the presence of the Supreme Lord in my life. I don't feel it. But how will we feel the presence of the Supreme Lord? So for that, we can say that there are three things we can do to feel the presence of the Lord. One is on a daily basis, make a commitment to Supreme Lord. Daily basis, make a commitment to Krishna. Secondly is you follow up on that particular commitment to Krishna. So follow up means what? That I have made a commitment and then I'll put it into action. Okay. And follow up in the sense you write it down also. Say, for example, I want to read one shloka every day. Okay, fine. You read, you follow up on that, you write it down, you learn it, you memorize it, whatever, commitment you have made to Krishna. And the third is, after finishing that commitment, you return and report to Krishna. So when you come and return and report to Krishna, it improves our relationship with Krishna. We will experience our relationship, with the Supreme Lord, and we will see that it has improved. In fact, it thickens also, and our relationship will, evolve also. So, one such thing, devotees can really do is that on a daily basis, journal, write down, what they would like to do. And it might not be the very same day also. It can be a weekly thing also. But at least you come down. But if you take a daily, when you take a daily, what is a commitment, maybe it may be a very small commitment also, maybe 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes. But if you take that commitment and you come and you report, you are actually thanking the Supreme Lord or expressing your gratitude. And how does that gratitude help? If you keep thanking, for example, you have a friend, you keep thanking that friend, you keep thanking your friend consistently, you keep thanking your friend intensely, eventually both of you will develop a feeling from the heart that how can I serve you, or what can I do for you, or how can I reciprocate with you. So the moment you say this, the bhakti level goes to the next level. And gratitude should be our only attitude towards the Supreme Lord or to the devotees or to anybody. So this act of service is so powerful that even if you don't enjoy that particular service, whatever maybe you might be doing, you might be learning shlokas, you might be offering a flower, you might be offering a fruit, you might be offering a bhoga, you might be actually serving something, you might be washing the pots in the temple or sweeping in the temple or doing book distribution, deity worship, anything. So that act of service is very powerful, that even if we are not enjoying that particular service, but if we have a very sincere desire to serve, then we will feel amazingly, fulfilled. We'll have a very heart's content. And when we share our service reluctantly, still we will experience a joy. So for example, just imagine, if we are serving with full heart or love, with full heart, then that is a big paradigm shift. You know, it's such an amazing thing that just by half-heartedly or not even sincerely, we feel, amazingly fulfilled. So if we will do it with complete heart, then how so? Just to, to just give and not expect anything from others, then we will experience a very high level of happiness, which is beyond our body and our senses also. And we will feel so happy when we are in the mood of serving or mood of giving, actually. So when this particular paragraph was there, I was just thinking about this preaching thing. So the mood of giving should be so good. Okay, let's go to the next. Saesha atma atmatvatam adiva adishwar स्त्रीमयो धर्ममस्यप्योमयम् गतव्यालीकर अज शंकरादिभिर वितर्क्यालिंगो भगवान प्रसीदितम. So again, this is the further praise that he is glorifying, that may the Supreme Lord, who is, this, the, who is the personification of the Vedas and religious scriptures and all, he be pleased with me. So, Sushil Prabhu is there. Sushil Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, please do the honors of reading the translation and purport, both.
Translation. He is the super soul and supreme lord of all self-realized souls. He is the personification of the Vedas, religious scriptures, and austerities. He is worshipped by Lord Brahma and Shiva and all those who are transcendental in all pretensions. Being so revered with awe and veneration, may the Supreme Absolute be pleased with me. Purport. The Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, although the Lord of all followers of different paths of self-realization, is knowable only by those who are above all pretensions. Everyone is searching for eternal peace and eternal life, and with an aim to this destination, everyone is either studying the Vedic scriptures or other religious scriptures or undergoing severe austerity as empiric philosophers, as mystic yogis, or undergoing severe austerities as empiric philosophers, mystic yogis, or as annular devotees, etc. But the Supreme Lord is perfectly realized only by the devotees because they are above all pretensions. Those who are on the path of self-realization are generally classified as karmis, jnanis, yogis, or devotees of the Lord. The karmis, who are much attracted by the fruitive activities of the Vedic rituals, are called bhuktikami, or those who desire material enjoyment. The jnanis, who try to become one with the Supreme by mental speculation, are called muktikami, or those who desire liberation from material existence. The mystic yogis, who practice different types of austerities for attainment of 8 kinds of material perfection and who ultimately meet the super soul, Paramatma, in trance, are called siddhikami, or those who desire the perfection of becoming finer than the finest, becoming heavier than the heaviest, getting everything desired, having control over everyone, creating everything like, etc. All these are abilities of a powerful yogi. But the devotees of the Lord do not want anything like that of self-realization. They want only to serve the Lord because the Lord is great, and as living entities, they are eternally subordinate parts and parcel of the Lord. This perfect realization of the self by the devotee helps him to become desireless, to desire nothing for his personal self, and thus the devotees are called nishkami, without any desire. A living entity, by his constitutional position, cannot be void of all desires. The Bhuktikami, Muktikami, and Siddhikami all desire something for personal satisfaction. But the Nishkami devotees of the Lord desire everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. They are completely dependent on the orders of the Lord and are always ready to discharge their duty for the satisfaction of the Lord. In the beginning, Arjuna placed himself as one of those who desire self-satisfaction for he desired not to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but to make him desireless. The Lord preached the Bhagavad-gītā, in which the ways of Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Hatha Yogi, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga, and also Bhakti Yoga were explained. Because Arjuna was without pretensions, he changed his decision and satisfied the Lord by agreeing to fight Karishye Vachanam Tava, and thus he became desireless. The example of Brahma and Lord Shiva specifically cited here because Brahmaji, Lord Shiva, Srimati Lakshmiji, and four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, etc., are leaders of the four desireless Vaishnava Sampradaya. They are all freed from all pretension. Srila Jiva Goswami interprets the word Gata Vailika as Prajita Kaitavaha, or those who are freed from all pretension, the unalloyed devotees only. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 19.1.149 it is said, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Atayava Santa Bhakti Mukti Siddhi Kami Shakali Asanta. Those who are after fruitive results for their pious activities, those who desire salvation and identify with the Supreme, and those who desire material perfection or mystic power are all restless because they want something for themselves. But the devotee is completely peaceful because he has no demand for himself and is always ready to serve the desire of the Lord. The conclusion is, therefore, that the Lord is for everyone because no one can achieve the result of his respective desires without his sanction. But as stated by the Lord in Bhagavad-gītā 8.9, all such results are rewarded by him only. For the Lord is Adhishara, the original controller of everyone, named
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hari Bol. Prabhuji, we are not able to hear you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Namely, the Vedantists, the great Karma Kandiyas, the religious leaders, the great performers of austerity, and all who are striving for spiritual advancement. But ultimately, he realized by the pretensionless devotees only. Therefore, special stress is given to the devotional service of the Lord by Srila Shukdev Goswami. So, very nice this particular shloka is, where whatever may be, one's practice, as a part of their practice, everyone has to worship the personal form of the Lord. Only then can they, achieve success in their practice. And this is mentioned in the previous verses, that however maybe one's, desired goal, but if that practice does not have the worship of the Supreme Lord as a part of that practice, then one cannot get the result also of that practice. So, for example, if it is a Jnana Yogi or a Dhyana Yogi or an Ashtanga Yogi, he has to simultaneously worship the Supreme Lord, then only will he get success in those particulars practice. So, whereas this, if one is worshipping the Supreme Lord, whatever maybe, one's material disqualification, he can achieve success, both the things, Shukdev Goswami is mentioning that in this verse, that he's mentioning that everyone can, everyone has to worship the Supreme Lord, but only, select few can understand the Supreme Lord. So he says that Shesha, he's using this particular, that Shesha Atmavatanam. He's saying that he alone is the Supreme Lord and he is Atma, Atmavatam, Adishwara. So even the Jnanis, the yogis, they worship him as Atma. Or the knowers of the Vedas also, they also worship him as the object of sacrifice. Or even the Yajna, Purushas, the Dharmas, yes, they are also followers of Dharma. They also worship him. The followers of even the, austerities, all these tapasya, those who do tapomaya, they are also actually worshipping him as the, the object. And the followers of austerity, they are also worshipping him, the Supreme Lord. But uh, uh, he says that only this category, this Gata Valikir, this particular category, these are actually free of deceit. And this is only the symptom of a pure devotee. Those who are free from deceit, and Srila Prabhupada is also writing that how only devotees are free from deceit. Only the Gata Valikir devotees are, Lord Brahma, he's, and Shankara Dibir. Shankar, only they can understand, Lord Shankar. They can understand the Supreme Lord. Others can worship the Supreme Lord and achieve success. But to understand the Supreme Lord, one must be a devotee who is free from deceit. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also, in one of his commentaries, he gives a very slightly different, translation. He says that while others can worship the Supreme Lord, even the best among the worshippers, the devotees, even they cannot completely understand the Supreme Lord. Both, are right. Even the Supreme Lord cannot understand the extent to his own glories, and even the devotees cannot understand. So if you take, Srila Vishwanath Thakur's, even the greatest of the Lord's worshippers can't understand the full extent of the Lord's glories. So it is the glorification of the Supreme Lord. Or if you take Srila Prabhupada's purport that only the pure devotees can understand the Supreme Lord, that is the glorification of the path of bhakti actually. So one is glorification of Bhagwan and the other is the glorification of bhakti. And both are there. So the Lord also says, I will reveal myself to such a person who is free from deceit, who I know for sure has no ulterior motives and will not use that info to exploit me. So these this Gata Velikar people, they are, Nishkam Karma Yogis. Now, if you see in the first canto, Bhishma Dev, what is that chapter number? I think it is 5th chapter number. No, sorry, Bhishma Dev's chapter is 9th chapter. In that, Bhishma Dev is saying that iti mati upakalpita vitrishna bhagavati satata pungave vibhumi swasukham upagate kvachit vihartum prakritim upeshi yad bhava prabhavah. He's saying that, okay, now let me invest my whole mind, thinking, feeling, willing. I have been thinking about so many different subject matters and so many, occupational duties I had. And now let me just focus my mind on the Supreme Lord. And let me just be completely fixed. So Bhishma Dev actually, because of his, now this is a practical thing that example that I'm giving of a Nishkam Karma Yogi, that because he was a Kshatriya and he was a leader, you can see he was a general, and his mind was completely with so many other, subjects of war and administration and all these things. So, and his thinking, feeling, willing were completely, engaged in all these different matters. But now, because he wants to achieve pure devotional service, now he wants to invest all that power of thinking, feeling, and willing to the Supreme Lord. And because he's the leader of all this powerful, uh, kingdom. So though Krishna is the, Supreme Lord, he himself is actually also descending to bestow pure devotional service to his pure devotees. So that is why Krishna Paritrana Sadhunam Vinashaya Diskriti. So both are pure leader, pure devotees. And pure devotees, they have no desire other than the service of the Lord. And that is why they are called Satvata. Because they are completely, the Satvatas, they only want to please the Lord, and they want to just they want to do all the activities connecting to the Lord. So because Bhishma Dev is one such Satvata, and he had no other desires. So Srila Prabhupada says that unless one is purified from all sorts of material desires, the Lord does not become one's leader. And desires cannot be worked out, but the desires have to be purified. A very powerful statement, okay? इच्छा को हम मिटा नहीं सकते हैं, लेकिन इच्छा को पवित्र कर सकते हैं. Which means what? That for example, I have a desire. Okay. I have a desire of acquiring wealth. Okay, it's a good desire, not a bad desire. But how can that desire be purified? Somebody has this desire of earning wealth, lots of wealth. But what he can do is, okay, he wants to earn wealth, but I will earn for the Supreme Lord. So what he does is, he earns somewhere 2-3 lakhs a month, and he is giving all that money to the Supreme Lord. Desire bhi ho gaya, and he is giving it also to the Supreme Lord. Or in the initial stage, if somebody has the desire of earning money and he still gets 3-4 lakhs a month, he can do, he can give 10%, then 20%, 30, 50, 60, 80. And then one day he can reach to 100. So slowly, gradually he can. So when it is saying that by the Lord, he himself gives the Lord is giving him, the Lord is giving instructions from within. When he says that Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajata Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenam Upayandite. So the Lord himself is only giving that instructions from within the heart of a pure devotee who's constantly engaged in serving the Supreme Lord. And the Lord does not give such an instruction for any material purpose. But the Lord is giving that instruction for going back to Godhead. Or for a normal man or an ordinary man who wants to actually just enjoy this material world, or as Prabhupada says, wants to lord it over the material nature, the Lord is only sanctioning and he becomes the witness. Upadekshata Anumanta. Yeah. But he never gives the devotee instructions of going back to Godhead. So for whom the instructions are given for pure devotees only, who wants to live. So this is the difference in dealing by the Lord with different living beings. So both the devotee and the non-devotee. So the Supreme Lord is the leader of all the living beings, and as the king of the state, rules both the prisoners also and the free citizens also. So the Supreme Lord is dealing with both kind of people. Those who are in this material world also, and those who are actually free from this material world's entanglement. So his dealings are very much different in terms of devotee and non-devotee. So why? Because non-devotees, they never care to take any instruction from the Lord, and therefore the Lord is always silent in their case. Although he is witnessing all these activities and is awarding those necessary results, good or bad, the devotees of the Supreme Lord, they are above all this material goodness and badness. And that is why they keep on progressing, towards the Supreme Lord. And therefore, they have no desire for anything material. The devotee also knows that Krishna is the Supreme, he is the original Narayan. And, so the Lord also desires this association of his pure devotees. And for these pure devotees only, the Lord is descending on his earth and he's enlivening them directly. The Lord will appear out of his own will. We cannot force the Supreme Lord that, okay, now you come now. No. We cannot force the Supreme Lord with any material nature also. And that is why we are Anu and the Supreme Lord is Vibhu. And that is why the Lord is never conditioned by any laws of material nature. So that is why only the Nishkam Karma Yogis or the Nishkam devotees, those who are very much unalloyed devotional, who have unalloyed devotional for the Supreme Lord, for such people, the Supreme Lord comes. So this is, okay, there are some questions in the chat box. Let me take that. Okay. Hare Krishna, I lost internet connection. Extremely sorry for the losing. Okay, no problem, Prabhu. Sometimes happens. बड़े-बड़े देशों में ऐसी छोटी-छोटी बातें होती रहती है. Yeah. Mataji, what if one wants to study masters and then feels that it might be waste of time instead of we can spread that time in learning BG or Bhagavatam? But again, if we do masters, then we can do better jobs opposite and then serve the Lord even better. What is the correct line of thought, Mataji? Yeah, you can do it for the pleasure of the Lord. That okay, if I do masters, people will take me more seriously when I preach. For example, if somebody is 10th pass, people don't take him very seriously when he is actually giving some education or when he's giving his own thoughts. But a person who's an IITian or in masters, people will listen to him more better. So you can do it, from that point of view also. That when you are at some particular post position, people will take you more seriously. When you're into a leadership position, people will be able to follow what you're saying, and you can that way turn non-devotees into devotees. You can do it that way. Yeah, this you can do it. Okay, now the next shloka is a very interesting shloka. Of course, it does not have much explanation, but you yourself will see what the shloka is. So it says that Shriyapatir Yagnapati Prajapatir Dhiyam Patir Lokapati Dharapati Patir Gatis Chandaka Vrishni Satvatam Prasiddhatam Me Bhagavan Satatam Pati. So he's saying that Shriyapati, okay, he is the pati of the, he is the pati of Mother Lakshmi, Shriyapati. Yagnapati, he is the pati of all the yagnas also. Prajapati, he is the leader of all the living. Then Dhyam, he is the master of intelligence also. Lokapati, Loka means all the different lokas. He is the proprietor of all the other planets. Dharapati, he is the pati of the earth also. Pati, okay. Gati, destination. He is the pati of the destination also, whichever part you lead to. And then he is the pati of the Satotams also. Satotam means the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. He is the pati of the Satotam also, the Lord of the devotees. And then he is Satam Patihi. Satam Pati means pure devotees of the Supreme Lord again. So let's see the translation. Lakshmi Narayan Prabhu, please do the honors of reading this very beautiful shloka, translation and purport both.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Translation. May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipful Lord of all the devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andhaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. Purport. Since Sukadeva Goswami is one of the prominent Gatha Vyalikas who are freed from all misconceptions, he therefore expresses his own realized perception of Lord Sri Krishna as being the sum total of all perfection, the personality of Godhead. Everyone is seeking the favor of the goddess of fortune, but people do not know that Lord Sri Krishna is the beloved husband of all goddesses of fortune. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord, in his transcendental abode Goloka Vrindavana, is accustomed to herding the Survi cows and is served there by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. All these goddesses of fortune are manifestations of his transcendental pleasure potency, Ladini Shakti, in his internal energy. And when the Lord manifested himself on this earth, he partially displayed the activities of his pleasure potency in his Rasa Leela just to attract the conditioned souls who are all after the Pantasmagoria, pleasure potency in degraded sex enjoyment. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Shukdev Goswami, was completely detached from the abominable, abominable, abominable sex life of the material world. Discussed this act of the Lord's pleasure potency, certainly not in relation to sex, but to relish a transcendental taste inconceivable to the mundaners who are after sex life. Sex life is the mundane world, is the root cause of being conditioned by the shackles of illusion, and certainly Sukadeva Goswami was never interested in the sex life of the mundane world. Nor does the manifestation of the Lord's pleasure potency have any connection with such degraded things. Lord Chaitanya was a strict sannyasi, so much so that he did not allow any woman to come near him, not even to bow down and offer respects. He never even heard the prayers of the Devadasis offered in the temple of Jagannatha because a sannyasi is forbidden to hear songs sung by the fair sex. Yet, even in the rigid position of a sannyasi, he recommended the mode of worship preferred by the gopis of Vrindavana as the topmost loving service possible to be rendered to the Lord. And Srimati Radhani is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune, and therefore she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is not different from Krishna. In the Vedic rituals, there are recommendations for performing different types of sacrifice in order to achieve the greatest benefit in life. Such benedictions, as the results of performing great sacrifices, are, after all, favors given by the goddess of fortune and Lord, being the husband or lover of the goddess of fortune. He is factually the Lord of all sacrifices also. He is the final enjoyer of all kinds of yajna, therefore, Yagnapati is another name of Lord Vishnu. It is recommended in the Bhagavad-gītā that everything be done for the Yagnapati, Yagnartat, Yagnartat Karmanaha. For otherwise, one's acts will be the cause of conditioning by the law of material. Those who are not freed from all misconceptions, Vyalikam, perform sacrifices to please the minor demigods, but the devotees of the Lord know very well that Lord Sri Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all performance of sacrifice. Therefore, they perform the Sankirtana Yajna, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, which is especially recommended in this age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, performance of other types of sacrifice is not feasible due to insufficient arrangements and inexpert priesthood. We have information from Bhagavad-gītā 3.10 and 11. The Lord Brahma, after giving rebirth to the conditioned souls within the universe, instructed them to perform sacrifices and to lead a prosperous life. With such sacrificial performances, the conditioned souls will never be in difficulty in keeping body and soul together. Ultimately, they can purify their existence. They will find natural promotion into spiritual existence. the real identity of living being. A conditioned soul should never give up the practice of sacrifice, charity, and austerity in any circumstances. The aim of all such sacrifices is to please the Yagnapati, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord is also Prajapati. According to the Katha Upanishad, the one Lord is the leader of the innumerable living entities. The living entities are maintained by the Lord. Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. The Lord is therefore called the supreme Bhuta, Bhut, or maintainer of all living beings.
Yeah, Prabhuji. I'll just give somebody else to read so
Thank
that
you, Mother.
you will cover up with all devotees also. Yeah, Vrinda, please read.
Living beings are proportionately endowed with intelligence in terms of their previous activities. All living beings are not equally endowed with the same quality of intelligence because behind such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord, as declared in the Bhagavad-gītā 15.15. As Paramatma, Super Soul, the Lord is living in everyone's heart, and from Him only does one's power of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness follow. Mata smritir jnananam apohanam cha. One person can sharply remember past activities by the grace of the Lord, while others cannot. One is highly intelligent by the grace of the Lord, and one is a fool by the same control. Therefore, the Lord is Dhyampati, or the Lord of intelligence. The conditioned soul strive to become lords of the material world. Everyone is trying to lord it over material nature by applying his highest degree of intelligence. This misuse of intelligence by the conditioned soul is called madness. One's full intelligence should be applied to get free from the material clutches. But the conditioned soul, due to madness only, engages his full energy and intelligence in sense gratification, and to achieve this end of life, he willfully commits all sorts of misdeeds. The result is that instead of attaining an unconditional life of full freedom, the mad conditioned soul is entangled again and again in different types of bondage in material bodies. Everything we see in the material manifestation is but the creation of the Lord. Therefore, He is the real proprietor of everything in the universes. The conditioned soul can enjoy a fragment of this material creation under the control of the Lord, but not self sufficiently. That is the instruction in the Isha Upanishad. One should be satisfied with things awarded by the Lord of the universe. It is out of madness only that one tries to encroach upon another's share of material possessions. The Lord of the universe, out of his causeless mercy upon the conditioned souls, descend by his own energy, Atma Maya, to re-establish the eternal relation of the conditioned souls with him. He instructs all to surrender unto him instead of falsely claiming to be enjoyers for a certain limit under his control. When he so descends, he proves how much greater is his ability to enjoy, and he exhibits his power of enjoyment by, for instance, marrying 16,000 wives at once. The conditioned soul is very proud of becoming the husband of even one wife, but the Lord laughs at this. The intelligent man can know who is the real husband. Factually, the Lord is the husband of all women in his creation. But a conditioned soul under the control of the Lord feels proud to be the husband of one or two wives. All these qualifications, as the different types of pati mentioned in the verse, are meant for Lord Sri Krishna, and Sukadev Goswami has therefore especially mentioned the pati and gati of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty knew that Lord Sri Krishna is everything, and all of them intended to return to Lord Krishna after he had finished his transcendental pastimes on the earth. The Yadu dynasty was annihilated by the will of the Lord because its members had to return home with the Lord. The annihilation of the Yadu dynasty was a material show created by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, the Lord and the members of the Yadu dynasty are all eternal associates. The Lord is therefore the guide of all devotees, and such as Sukadev Goswami offered him due respects with love-laden feelings. Hare Krishna.
So Shukdev Goswami is also, of course, having loving feelings to the Supreme Lord. So the next shloka that we're going to discuss or we're going to read is actually that it's saying that the Supreme Lord, he is giving liberation also. And anybody who is meditating on the supreme form of the Lord, on a lotus feet, the devotees see, him as the absolute truth. But mental speculators will see according to their own whims. So, Shukdev Goswami is praying that, Lord Krishna, please give me that knowledge by which I can actually understand you and not worship you according to my own whims and ways. Yat angri abhidhyana samadhi dhautaya dhyanupasyanti hi tattvam atmana vadanti chait kavayo yatharucham same mukunda bhagwan prasidatam. Yeah, Priyanka, read this translation and purport both.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. It is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna who gives liberation. By thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities, the devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. Purport. The mystic yogis, after a strenuous effort to control the senses, may be situated in a trance of yoga just to have a vision of the super soul within everyone. But the pure devotee, simply by remembering the Lord's lotus feet at every second, at once becomes established in real trance, because by such realization his mind and intelligence are completely cleansed of the diseases of material enjoyment. The pure devotee thinks himself fallen into the ocean of birth and death, and incessantly prays to the Lord to lift him up. He only aspires to become a speck of transcendental dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotee, by the grace of the Lord, absolutely loses all attraction for material enjoyment, and to keep free from contamination, he always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. King Kulashekara, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed, Krishna Tvadiya Mataji, can I say that?
Krishna
My,
Tvadiya Pad Pankaj Panjarantam Advaimave Vishatu Manasa Rajahamsa Prana Pranaya Samaye Kapavata Pitta Kantavarodhana Vidhau Smaranam Kutaste. Yeah, read.
my Lord, yeah, my Lord Krishna, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? There is an intimate relationship between the swan and the lotus stem. So the comparison is very appropriate. Without becoming a swan or Paramahamsa, one cannot enter into the network of the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, the mental speculators, even by dint of learned scholarship, cannot even dream of the absolute truth by speculating over it for eternity. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to such mental speculators. And because they cannot enter into the network stem of the lotus feet of the Lord, all mental speculators differ in conclusions, and at the end, they make a useless compromise by saying, as many conclusions, as many ways, according to one's own inclination, yatharucham. But the Lord is not like a shopkeeper trying to please all sorts of customers in the mental speculator exchange. The Lord is what He is, the absolute personality of Godhead, and He demands absolute surrender unto Him only. The pure devotee, however, by following the ways of previous acharyas or authorities, can see the Supreme Lord through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master, Anupashyanti. The pure devotee never tries to see the Lord by mental speculation, but by following in the footsteps of the acharyas, Mahajano Yena Gata Sapantaha. Therefore, there is no difference of conclusions amongst the Vaishnava acharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity, Jiva, is eternally the servitor of the Lord and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. This tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all four sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnava acharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one. This humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his service puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything, because to the sincere devotee of the Lord reveals himself as stated in the Bhagavad-gītā 10.10. The Lord, being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and his different energies. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, he reveals himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude. Shukadev Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Rather, he prays to the Lord only, invoking his transcendental pleasure. That is the way of knowing the Lord. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. So ahead he says that maybe 22nd shloka, right? Yeah. Prachodita yena pura saraswati vinantava tajyasya sati smriti hridhi swalakshana pradurbhutam kilastyatah same rishinam rishava prasiditam. Oh, only Radha Krishna Prabhu, sorry, Rasika Krishna Prabhu, please read the translation and purport both. Okay, not there. May the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified. Okay, it's. I think we'll stop at this shloka, because it's 10:15. We'll continue with this shloka tomorrow. Okay. So tomorrow is Thursday, so not a problem. I'll be there for sure. Because I think this shloka needs a little explanation. The 23rd also shloka needs explanation, 24th and 25th. We'll conclude with this chapter tomorrow with 5 shlokas and we'll go on to the next chapter. Yeah. So thank you, dear devotees, for joining in the wonderful reading sessions and wonderful enlivening sessions of Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.